Hey, AP Euro boys, Walls, we're here. Just got a shower and a shave, so I'm ready to go. We're sort of at the we're at the review stage. You guys take the test in a couple weeks, so I'm really just going to go through this topic by topic, and just kind of throw in a bunch of stuff that I have experienced in my many years of teaching AP as things that AP really enjoy. I have here our textbook. It only goes up to Unit 7 for the AP Euro. So my lectures kind of went up to 1848 and then unification. So now we go back and we take a look at what are some of the things that what are the things that they're gonna ask you? Let's see. So I guess we go back to we're not going back to the 100 Years' War. We'll go back to the fall of Constantinople, to the Turks in 1453. Which kind of kicks off the warring between the city-states, and the primary city-states that we're kind of talking about here. We're talking about Milan, Genoa, Florence, Venice, the Papal States, and the Kingdom of Naples. These will pretty much be the Italian city-states going almost up to Cavour, with the exception of you have that whole Piedmont, Sardinia thing that kind of comes out of Milan. So, you know, what is it that brings about the Renaissance? Well, I mean, the discovery of classical knowledge, that, you know, that whole rebirth, going back to the ideas of the Greeks and the Romans after an extended period of what was termed the Dark Ages. Now, look, the whole time that the Italians don't really have a hideously dark ages. This isn't like the England of the Middle Ages. The Italians, because they're Mediterranean, the Italians are constantly trading with the East. However, they still, this is a period where you're going to see dramatically increased scholarship. So you're going to start to see, and this is going to largely be because of some of the leaders that are going to emerge from this Ciompi revolt. Remember, you learned about Ciompi revolt, and that's how Cosimo de' Medici is able to come into power. That's where he's going to create the Florentine Academy. This is where you're going to see this sort of golden age of the Renaissance in the South. Now, it's going to be very important for you to distinguish between the Northern and Southern Renaissance. And I'll get into some of the Northern stuff in a little while. Right now, I'm kind of in the South. You know, let's see, what do we have? Remember your terms, like the populo grossi, populo minuto. So you have the old rich, which are the grandi, the noblemen, newly rich, which are the populo grosso, the fat people. And the third is the, let's see, there's a term, populo minuto. Yeah, that's right. Sort of the bottom of the society. You know, obviously social divisions there's going to be conflicts, but this isn't going to, you're not going to be asked about something about the conflicts between the classes. I would imagine they would start everything at that Ciompi revolt, you know, and what happened there was the lower classes in Florence started ruling, and out of this is you're going to have despotism, and this is where you create this power vacuum that Cosimo de' Medici is going to use by manipulating the condottieri, which are the guys who are brokers of military might. These are, you know, these are just dudes that you contact when you need an army, okay? So that's sort of the political rise of the, you know, Cosimo, and other city-states are going to have characters that are similar to Cosimo, but the reason we spend so much time with the Medicis is because they have such a profound impact, and those are typically the people that they would, you know, they would ask you about, the Medicis, and the rise to power. And when we look at these city-states, okay, aforementioned, with Milan and Naples and Florence and the Papal States, these city-states are all on the Mediterranean, and so they're all given tremendous access to trade. Now, key to understanding that is going to be trade equals money. And so the Renaissance is a financial movement, because what's going to happen is you're going to have people that have enough money to become patrons of the arts and patrons of education. And this is that's sort of like the, you know, this is where this idea of humanism comes about. We you know, studia humanitatis, whatever, man. Ask Broderick King if you need the Latin part of that. So what we're gonna get there is we're gonna start to get, sorry, I just, when it's so close, I just look like I'm a million years old, and it's hard enough being 53. But this humanism is going to be, this all goes back to this idea of rediscovering the classic Greeks. So obviously the father of humanism, the one they always name, is Petrarch, okay? So you get Petrarch, the big guns, Petrarch, who writes letters to the ancient dead. Remember that, where he writes these long letters to the dead Greek and Roman writers. And he gets sort of that father of humanism thing. Now, he's you know, we'll go into that a bit more, because you have like Rudolf Agricola, who I believe is the father of German humanism, but that's a Northern Renaissance thing. Actually, what is it, Bruni? That's the one who coins the term humanities. Yeah, Leonardo Bruni. But I digress. Let's get back to trying to get through. I'm trying to cover like one section in review, and what like the major things you want to know are. But Petrarch's letters are to Cicero, Virgil, Horace, Livy. I don't know how to pronounce that. I've read Aristotle, and I know I love philosophy, but man, Plato and Aristotle, that's pretty much it. You got to go to Broderick King for some of that stuff. Anyway, let's the letters to the ancient dead, and then let's see, we have, oh, very important, Dante, okay, Alighieri, is the first to use vernacular. Okay? And obviously you guys are well aware, I think you've read Dante and the Divine Comedy in theology, but he's important. Boccaccio, very timely. We read excerpts from the Decameron. It's 10 stories about how different people handle the plague. Now remember, a theme inherent in Renaissance thought is this idea of people having survived this plague, and there's this rejuvenation of humanism, or discovery of humanism, kind of goes hand in hand with the amount of carnage that many of these people have bore witness to. And remember that the plague doesn't help the church much, because people had been, for years, paying money and giving alms. And then this plague comes and wipes out 50 to 70% of the population of a given town. So there's that element, very timely subject here. These are just things that you should revisit, these ideas of, hey, what is, although the plague is not, I just don't think it's going to be on this year's test, because they really have kind of said they're going back to the Renaissance. So, but Boccaccio's Decameron is written, at the very beginning of the Renaissance, and it does talk about the plague. By the way, I'm spending way too much time on little things right now, so hopefully you can discern what to just fast forward by. Let me give you, I want to give you a little reading here from Virgilio. We call these studies liberal, which are worthy of a free man, those studies by which we attain and practice virtue and wisdom. That perfectly epitomizes this period. Let's see, the book of Baldassare Castiglione's Book of the Courtier always pops up on tests, and it's it's all about being a gentleman, and the noble ideas and virtuous ideas. Florentine Academy, one of the really important parts of the Florentine Academy, we're going to have, oh, wait, stop. Let's not forget Christine de Pizan, okay? Pretty closely linked to the French King Charles V. The AP exam likes their prominent women, and Christine de Pizan is going to be the first one who she writes The Treasure of the City of Ladies, okay? And it is the first, it's like a book about the great accomplishments of women. So pause this right now and put down Christine de Pizan, Treasure of the City of Ladies, because that is something that they would like. Florentine Academy, Plato-based, Medici opens it. Let's see, he invites anybody. This is one of the things about Florence and Cosimo and all the Italian city-states, is they're pretty progressive in terms of their things like treatment of the Muslim world. It's all about money. They don't care what your skin color is. They don't really care what your religion is. They just care about what can you trade. So, Arab scholars are going to be welcomed at the Florentine Academy, which is going to, obviously the Arab world wasn't in a dark ages when we were in a dark ages. They're bringing all kinds of stuff over to Florence. So there's your Florentine Academy. I think that's the most important part of the Florentine Academy. Let's see. Yeah, you have, I don't know. Well, of course, now we get into our Ninja Turtles. The premier Ninja Turtle being Leonardo da Vinci. You've all played Assassin's Creed. So you are very well aware of all these guys. But the technique that is, remember, linear perspective and chiaroscuro, which is that sort of shading to enhance the like naturalness and beauty. Important in this period is our boy Machiavelli. He's late 1400s, early 1500s, and the Prince. So remember, it is better to be feared than loved. You know, that idea of, and then is it a satire? Is it, you know, that's not, I mean, I don't think that's relevant. I think the importance of the Prince is his detailed diagram of what a man in power has to do. Okay? You know, remember some of the things he mentions in there, like if you got to do bad things, do them all at once, because people will, you know, they'll rip the Band-Aid off quickly. That kind of mentality. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer is a Machiavellian thing. So remember our boy Machiavelli here. And the Renaissance art, that chiaroscuro and linear perspective. Of course, we have the idea of Pico de Mirandola, oration on the dignity of man, which is, you know, this beautiful opus on our potential. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so Raphael, School of Athens, Michelangelo, the Sistine Chapel, and he creates mannerism, okay? And it's just sort of, it's just sort of the style that takes Renaissance art and kind of incorporates a different type of, he puts the feelings of the artist into the work, rather than making it so, God, I wish I had a word right now. Well, look, here it says, it gives free rein to the individual perceptions and feelings of the artist. That's mannerism. Okay, well put, book. And remember that much later will come El Greco, arguably the greatest painter of all time. And he's in the 1600s or late 1500s, 1600s. Let's see. You'll read, just take a look at Italy's political decline, you know, 1494 to 1527. Obviously, this has a lot to do with, go back and revisit the Naples threat, I believe, threatens Milan, and they have a Treaty of Lodi. What happens here? You know, French kings, of course, were in charge of Naples, and then the one king invites in the French, and then the French come in. French armies cross the Alps, and just run roughshod. This is also going to be where we're going to have Sarandola. What's his book? His pamphlet. Something about we've had this coming. In 1495, remember that we had the whole League of Venice, which was Venice, Milan, Papal States, Holy Roman Empire, and Spain will fight against the French. Then at that point, the Borgias come in, and the French. This goes back and forth, but eventually we're going to have Charles VIII is going to just come marching all the way through Italy. He's going to take most of Italy. And that's because of Savonarola. Remember, he's the crazy priest who's like, you will know our destruction, or what is the name of his little, it's great. He really calls upon he was a priest who looked at the mercantilist people of Florence as if they were the worst people on the planet, and he will take over, but he will also meet his demise at the hands of the people when the French are no longer there. Let's see, the Borgias, of course, Pope Alexander VI. There is the HBO series. Let's see, it's a scandal. They're not going to ask you a bunch about the Borgias. There's the French and the whole coming into Italy. And that's kind of where, I'm trying to think if there's anything else about the Southern Renaissance that's really necessary for you to know. And I'm not really finding it. We've covered a lot of the big names. Here, let me see what's that? Okay. One of the things, at this same time, remember that Ferdinand and Isabella are commissioning Columbus. They are kicking the Moors out of Spain. It is Ferdinand and Isabella. It is the Reconquista, and they take complete control over the Spanish church. And remember, one of their daughters will be Catherine of Aragon, who will marry Henry the Eighth. And remember, that's who he wants to get a divorce from. But for the most part, the most important thing about Ferdinand and Isabella is not Columbus, but rather the fact that they had this Reconquista and pretty much pushed all the Jews and Arabs out of Spain during this particular period. And then we kind of come to the Northern Renaissance, which, wouldn't really be a Northern Renaissance without the printing press. 14 maybe 40 or something, we get the printing press. And now you have, of course, the ability for publications and massive publications. The literacy is going to increase in both the Southern Renaissance and the Northern Renaissance, and the printing press is going to be a big part of this, as is vernacular. Okay, so you're going to now have vernacular, and you're going to have the printing press, and you're going to have wealth. So there's one of your themes that is going to be kind of there the whole time. Like, hey, how does this happen? Well, we come out of a period of plague and war and this, that, and the other thing. We get back to the mercantile standards that have been set. We start trading, and with money comes patrons of the arts, and with patrons of the arts comes brilliant artists, and so forth and so on. Let's see. I think one of the most important characters of this particular time is going to be Desiderius Erasmus, a name I almost gave my son. He is a Northern humanist. And the thing about a lot of this Northern humanism, and for the record, I mentioned Agricola is the father of German humanism. Is Thomas More the father of English humanism? Tough call. But Erasmus wrote something called Philosophia Christi. And the thing that's so important about Erasmus is the fact, I'm trying to find I know he translates the Bible into Greek, which is, that'll get you burned at the stake. And let's see, or wait, Philosophia Christi, is that his book or no? He has a, I'm trying to find what his actual book was. Philosophia Christi is sort of his like beliefs. Anyway, let me, so Erasmus is a guy who is willing to criticize the church. And this is a guy that is, considered the egg that Luther hatched. He lays the egg and Luther hatches it. He's willing to criticize the church, but one of the things that's really impressive about Erasmus, and he goes after the usual stuff, but one of the things that's really impressive about Erasmus is he doesn't break with the Catholic Church. He's critical. He recognizes it could be his destruction, but he also says, I'm here to fix this. I want to get rid of these things that Luther will later, of course, have his 95 Thesis, and he will actually, and by the way, Luther's intent was not to break from the church. Luther was kind of put in a position where he was forced to break from the church, but that wasn't his intent. He just wanted to talk about stuff, primarily indulgences. Coin in coffer rings, soul to heaven springs. But it was Erasmus who was the one who was willing to put himself on the line. Now, I don't think John Wycliffe and John Huss will be on the test, but remember Huss, the Bohemian, challenges the church. The conciliarist movement, and this is going back to the 1300s and early 1400s, the conciliarist movement, remember, they believed there should be a council that oversaw church things, business. And then Wycliffe is the one who motivates Huss. So Huss is in Bohemia, Wycliffe is in England. Huss will be burned at the stake. He pays the ultimate price. Wycliffe won't be, because he is in England, and this is a period in English history where kings were a little more wary of trying to preserve their power. So killing a guy as popular as Wycliffe would have been a bad call. But in Bohemia at the time, this is hardcore. This is the Holy Roman Empire. He's dead. So know those guys, because Wycliffe and Huss are like the first real dudes to say, no, we're doing it the church has lost its way. It's no longer about communicating with God, and they're very critical of priests at the time. And then Erasmus. So if you were asked a question on how to, how does the church, what are the events that lead up to the Reformation, which is a very feasible question, because we are going back in history, and we're not doing 20th century in this year's test. So, there's only so many thematic questions. Well, you could go back to the plague and the church, the perception that the church was unable to stop the plague. And then you throw in your Wycliffe, who's critical of the corruption within the church and the methodology of Catholicism. And then you get to Huss in Bohemia. So you see the spread. So you have Wycliffe in England and Huss in Bohemia. and the conciliarist movement, which is in the Holy Roman Empire as well. So you start to see what those kind of weigh into this. Anyway, man, I'm at 30 minutes and I don't like doing these. Hopefully you're using these as, I like doing them. I don't like making them longer than 30 minutes. I didn't mean it like that. I don't mind doing this. This is what I just yap. That's what I do. You kids are used to that. But here's sort of the first of the review. Like, here's what you should go back. And if you heard something that I said that you're like, oh, what the hell is that? Go back and take a look at it. Take a look at the conciliarist movement. Take a look at Wycliffe and Huss. Go back to the Ciompi Revolt if you want to take a look at the period prior to Cosimo de' Medici. Feel free. I'm really rushing through this stuff because I'm making these so that you can kind of put them in your earphones. And notice how I pointed to the ear. I got AirPods, by the way, and they are game-changing. But use them as like stuff you just kind of put in your car and you're like, oh, the soothing sounds of Mr. Walsweir in AP Euro in review mode. We'll continue with Northern Renaissance versus Southern Renaissance next time. Hey, miss you guys. Love you. Be safe. Give your parents a big hug for me.